So, can blockchain be a catalyst for development in Africa? Here is our interview with John Lombela.
It's going to be a pretty unique show where we're talking to digital entrepreneurs and Black entrepreneurs that are actually doing great things. Let it be in the marketing space, let it be in cryptocurrency. And I brought back John Lombela, a good friend of mine who's been playing in that space for quite a while. John Lombela, John is the cryptocurrency guru. I call him like that.
I'm an entrepreneur myself, all the way from South Africa. It is important to always develop new things, right? So ambitiously build new cases beyond just financial services. Yes, we believe in the financial services. I mean, Bitcoin, as a matter of fact, was created as a payment system, a peer-to-peer cash electronic system. It all started from there, but it doesn't have to stop there.
Wow. Well, you know what? A very, very good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're actually dialing from. And today, I am very, very excited. There is an amazing, sensational lady. She is a farmer. And for a lot of people, actually, agriculture and farming may not sound to be quite an exciting thing. But the way this particular guest of mine today, her name is Mbali Nwoko, and the way she actually turns the whole thing around gives you an incentive for you to realize that, you know what, there's great opportunities for you to really embrace this world of farming. So I'm going to bring an amazing guest. And while we are doing so, there's a couple of announcements that I want to make. So first of all, we are normalizing our shows. No more two shows during the week, Mondays and Fridays. So we're only going to have a single show on Monday at 7 p.m. every week. So far, before we used to bring you guys every 2 weeks. So a Monday show, Redefine Your Hustle, and a Friday show where we talk about anything finance, funding, alternative investment, and so forth. But you know what? We're consolidating everything to bring it into one single show because we are very busy and currently working on an amazing platform. But for now, let me bring the one and only Mbali Nwoko. Welcome to the show, Mbali.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
Fantastic. It is a pleasure to really have you here, by the way. So, guys, wherever you are from, share the live, prepare your questions. Everybody who is a farmer, who is in agriculture, who is an entrepreneur, who is a lady and would like to know more about farming in South Africa, I definitely encourage you to tune in, share this live, share with your friends, so we can actually have as many people on this particular show, so we can actually have quite a few things going on. So I'm pretty excited to bring Mbali here, who is going to tell us about her amazing journey and how she find herself in this specific space of agriculture. When I look at her, I mean, nobody will actually even think that she is a farmer, but yes, she is a farmer and an amazing entrepreneur. So, by the way, she is a multi-award winning farmer, and I want her to obviously tell us all about that particular journey. Mbali, welcome to the show once again. And why don't you actually just tell me all about yourself and how did you manage to make your way through to becoming a multi-award winning farmer?
John, I think the accolades just, happened by chance. I mean, it's not as if I specifically applied to win any awards, but you know, through my work in agriculture, it became evident that, you know, whilst I'm still farming and I'm trying to, you know, push my hustle, there are people in the background really looking and observing, that have been looking and observing my journey. So
Right.
the awards really was just something great, and just to get emails and to say, you know, I'm nominated for such and such an award, that has just been fantastic. But my journey started off, I owned a recruitment company before I started farming.
Okay.
I had a business partner with that for the recruitment company. I started the recruitment company in 2013. And I think firstly, for the first few months, we're pretty much a generalist recruitment company, but then really focused and niche towards recruiting and headhunting engineers and artisans for like industrial sector, chemical, water treatment, power utility, the list goes on. And yeah, so recruitment was great. I think I was good at what I was doing. The business was doing great as well. We hired graduates. We moved to a new office park, and everything was glory. It was just great. Up until I think it was at the end of 2015. I think that's when the economy just took a major turn. That's when like Thuli Madonsela, you know, released the Ganda report, and a lot of the things just started unpacking from an economic point of view. And at that time, that's when companies were starting to say, okay, we're not recruiting, we're not investing much on human capital because we have great uncertainty in terms of where the country is going. That's when also Eskom started, you know, showing a bit of so I think that's where the public started learning a lot more about what is happening into our private, state-owned enterprises. And because we were particularly recruiting within that space, in the technical space, and engineers and artisans, some working in power stations, or recruiting for companies that along the value chain relied on Eskom or mines to be open. It was a bit of a difficult period to be in. And then early in 2016, when we're trying to, you know, reshape the business, we couldn't really resuscitate it. So we started losing a lot on sales, and we tried to redefine how we recruit. But yeah, it was a challenging time, and the business failed. And then we made a decision to just end the business. And at that time, I was, I suppose, slowly exiting out of Clientscape, which was the recruitment company name. I met a gentleman at an entrepreneur's workshop. He was sitting next to me, and you know how we introduce ourselves? Oh, what's your name? What do you do? You know, how did you start? So the gentleman that was sitting next to me, his name is Eric, is a very good friend of mine today. He was just saying, I'm a farmer, you know, and I thought, wow, okay. Farming, why? And then, you know, I just thought, like, why? And he said, no, I'm starting, I'm farming vegetables right now, and my intention is to really develop this farm into a piggery farm. And I thought, okay, interesting. So then I started engaging with him, like, what are you farming? And he's like, I'm planting cabbages. I'm like, where are you supplying to? He said, to a number of spa franchises. I'm like, sure. How much money are you selling, you know, one cabbage head? And he would just say prices would differ. At that time, he was selling like a cabbage head for like 10 Rand. And I just probed, and I went deeper into the conversation, and I wanted to know more. And sure, I think at the end of that day, I was like, okay, I think this is something I really want to do. And then I went home, I started researching about the agricultural industry in South Africa, as well as on a global footprint, and just you know, what farmers are faced with on a daily basis, what is it that they do, and how to really farm strategically, because farming is a business at the end of the day. So I tried to find a lot of resources and articles and YouTube videos and anything I could find about farming, and most importantly, bringing it closer to home. So what does farming in South Africa look like, the agriculture industry? Who are the major stakeholders? Who are the major role players, the decision makers? What are the policies like? How can one make money? Where does one find land? So these were the things that I started researching, and I registered Green Terrace. And how I came about with the name is I just wanted something unique, a name that someone in maybe in Asia could pronounce, someone in, I don't know, Australia, New Zealand could pronounce.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of the farms, especially those that are founded by African people, were named after, so most of them were like Lima, or, had these African terminologies to them. And then so a lot of them were like taken in terms of the names that I really wanted. But so then I thought, let me just name a farm that is universal, that anyone could pronounce. And that's how I came up with Green Terrace. And the color green is my favorite color. Okay. So I thought it must have a green element to it, and then, so that's just how I came about with the name. But John, since then, I think after registering the company, I started with 50,000 Rand.
Okay.
Investment into the business, and then I started looking for land. So that was.
Let me ask you a question there. So how did you raise the 50,000 Rand you used for you to put in the business? Is it something that you had saved before? Did you go to the bank and raise funding? Did you get access to a loan, or how did you get to that point?
Okay, so some of it was from the business that I was just slowly winding down, which is Clientscape. We sold some assets, like a bit of furniture that we had, printing machines, the likes, and we just distributed between, we just paid off any creditors, and then my business partner and I just shared the rest. Some of it was also just personal savings that I had, and then some of it, it was a mix of selling off assets and combined with personal savings. So that's how I literally started Green Terrace, and it was to the value of 50,000, because that's what I remember putting down into the transferring into the business account. And I had planned that this 50,000 has to, I suppose, see me through, for a 4 months. So I really had to live on a budget. And fortunately, at that time, I really didn't have any personal debt to my name, which really helped. So I try to live on a budget for as long as I can.
Wow. So here's the thing, right? I mean, weren't you that scared that you come from the recruitment business and you take your last 50,000 Rand and put it into a business you have absolutely no experience on? And also I would have, look, I go to a conference and it's about mingling with people. The idea is, well, let me actually find maybe somebody who's going to lead me to restructure my recruiting company, but you said to somebody that you probably didn't know at that time, who introduced you to farming. And also, what is the element that convinced you that farming was really one thing that was interesting? I mean, from recruitment to farming, and now to being dedicated on saying, you know what, this is the one thing I'm going to do.
Well, John, personally for me, I think when I looked at this whole industry in farming, it just made sense to me, because I think also at the time when I was in Clientscape, it was about, I really want to make an impact. I want to find something of value. Not to say my recruitment company wasn't of value. It was, because I was helping people find jobs that they would not ordinarily find themselves. And I had the best of relationships with a lot of with my clients. So for me, it was just something about, I just want to make a much more bigger impact. And at the recruitment space, clients started, HR managers and executives started becoming very smart, trying to now control how an agency should work. I mean, you work on their fees, it's that or nothing. So I felt like, I'm drowning. There's no room to negotiate here. And then again, you turn every corner in Johannesburg and there's someone starting a recruitment company. And the tactics and the ways in which they started doing the recruitment was just very different to what I think I and my business partner was taught in the recruitment space. So yeah, for me, it was just like, I don't want to be in this space anymore, because the work that we do now is not valued in the industry. And therefore, trying to even get those conversations started with clients was just like you're knocking on a door that will just never open. So, and by nature, I'm generally a risk taker.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
So, yeah. That's what really pushed me to be like, I think I can do this. And I thought, you know what? How hard can it be to sell a freaking cabbage, or a
Right,
bunch of spinach? How hard can that be? Because
right,
yeah, it must be easy. And I thought to myself, whichever way the economy could go, at the end of the day, people still need food. Whereas on the recruitment aspect, that was not the case.
right.
So I was definitely, I think I was amped. My energy levels were still high and I was still young and I thought I could do this. And I think what was great is also at the time, my late husband was very supportive.
Right.
So when I came home and I told him, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And he was like, okay, maybe sleep on it. You might be taking a hasty decision, but sleep on it and let me know if this is what you want to do
Right.
tomorrow. Indeed I did, and I woke up and I was like, I'm going to be a farmer. In fact, I already am one. I just need to put it down. In reality, it needs to happen. So I think, yeah, my drive and my risk, being my ability to just be a risk taker was my driving force. And then again, once I just made that decision, it was also great to know that I had a husband that was supportive in that decision.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. So I want to come back to your entrepreneurial journey, but also your award. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more, and perhaps the audience as well, and everybody who's watching here right now, tell us exactly how many awards you've been able to get out there, and which one of those awards was the most
Oh,
impactful that made a change to your life?
sure. I can't tell you how many awards I've won. Um, I can't. And that's got nothing to do with bragging or whatever, but I can't. I think they're all listed on my personal website, but I just can't go back to all of that. But for me, the one that really stood out was the one I won in, I think it was 2018.
Right.
As a new entrant to commercial farming.
Okay.
And why that's important is a few things. Number one, the individuals that run those type of awards are from the agricultural industry.
Okay.
And some of them work for big organization, agribusinesses, global and local. And they're very key decision makers. And, when they reached out to me, they said, we've been watching your journey behind the scenes and you are, phenomenal. So for me, it's special because I was recognized by industry leaders and industry decision makers, and they saw they saw my potential.
Right.
Secondly, what makes it important is the title, New Entrant into Commercial Farming.
Good.
I think there's this stigma in the industry and people who don't know about the industry to say if you're a black farmer or a farmer of color, you automatically put at small scale,
Mm. Mm.
whereas I saw my business as I'm farming, I'm producing a crop, I'm selling it. I was already selling it to retail at that time, to processing companies, to informal markets, to the ladies at the
Right.
corner. Any client who gave me money, I did not turn away from. So for me, it's a business. I didn't identify myself as small scale or commercial or
Right.
mid-level. For me, I was like, I'm already commercial because I'm selling into mainstream markets. And then that new entrant, the word new entrant was to solidify the fact that I'm a first generation farmer.
Right.
So nobody in my family has been farming. I had no one within my immediate family to even bounce off and say, how do you do this thing? What challenges can how do I overcome challenges of water, hail?
Right.
No one could give me that reference point at home because no one was farming.
Yeah.
So the fact that, wow, I'm a new first generation farmer. I'm already just been given that commercial status, and then also being recognized by industry leaders. That was just big for me.
Sure.
At that time in 2018, I just thought I'm still crawling. I mean, it was only 2 weeks in when I'd done nothing. When I
And
look at it,
that's interesting
I've done
because
nothing.
the
Yeah.
next thing that I want you to explain here to the audience is how were these people able to, first of all, watch your journey and identify what you had done. So did you leverage the power of social media to relate your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, to that success? Or how can anybody comes up and say, hey, you know what, let me call that person and nominate her for this award?
Mhm.
How did they find you?
You'll think I'm lying, but I don't know. I don't know. I remember I just left the house on that day and I was driving and I stopped at the robots, about 2 robots from where I stay, and I received this call from this lady and said, Mbali, a number of people, she obviously introduced who she was, and she said a number of people have seen your journey that know you personally, and you've been nominated for this particular award. And yeah, so representing my region. So my region was the northern region, which consists of Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Northwest, and Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Northwest, and I think Limpopo. Right.
Right.
And I stand to be corrected, but I think it's those 4 regions. So they said from those regions you've been nominated by industry leaders, and I thought, wow, okay. And then when the actual award ceremony took place and I won that award, I was like, wow, I came on top from all these regions, and there's so many other farmers. So at that time, really, I wasn't really social media savvy or active and
Right.
putting stuff out there, but when I saw the people at those awards, it was people that I knew from Farmers Weekly, some editors and journalists, people that I knew from chemical companies, input supply companies that
Right.
I would procure products from. And, although maybe I'd know sales managers and technical managers, I was then introduced to like the CEOs of those type of companies, the people that are that manage the head of comms. So they just introduced themselves, and a lot of publications and I think documentary houses within the agricultural space. So
Right.
it was those people, and I thought, oh, okay, so you put your name, you put my name forward, and it was just incredible. But those people just knew me, had certain touch points in my life as well when I was a farmer, and that's just how I was nominated, and it was awesome. It was just an awesome award to receive. Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting point because in each one of these different sectors, right? So sometimes we don't know, but there are, and I know for a fact that every year there are certain publications, certain magazines, or certain houses that actually do give these awards. What they will do is they will send an email out to a whole group of people and say, you know what, okay, we are hosting this particular event, and please nominate so and so and so for these categories. And I suppose then the people who then realize, oh, hang on a second, I think I know Mbali, and I would definitely want to nominate her for this particular role, right? And of course, out of that, people will then decide, or the jury will decide exactly depending on the number of nomination that you are actually winning. But still on your entrepreneurial journey, look, you start, and probably about just a year and a half later or 2 years later, you get
Yeah.
nominated. Can
Yeah.
you tell me and the audience, and by the way, the audience, guys, please prepare your question. We love this interaction. Remember, the Redefine Your Hustle show is a show to inspire you in whatever you are doing. And it doesn't matter. Mbali is she's a farmer, she's in the agricultural space. But her journey will definitely inspire somebody who's watching, somebody who is actually looking for an inspiration of some kind, especially during this moment of a pandemic. So you might be inspired by her journey to take on a few tips so that you can actually apply them in your own life as an entrepreneur, right? So that's what we are talking to her to understand, a young lady, first generation farmer who actually kicks off, and a year and a half later or 2 years later gets nominated. I think that really speaks a lot of volume. I want to understand, what was the most challenging moment for you during from the moment you started to the moment you get that big nomination? What was the one thing? And of course, I have quite a few other topics to go through, but I want to understand, what was the challenging element? What was your down moment? What actually was your true hardcore hustling element that would say, you know what, I'm going through a hard time, but I am not backing down because I've got this dream and vision, whatever. Can you tell the audience exactly what you went through, if any?
Yeah, the biggest one, John, for me was labor. I mean, I've had other issues, but I think the one that stands out for me was labor, and it was difficult because I came from a corporate background. Even in my previous business, it employed graduates and so forth, really educated individuals. And I hope the audience doesn't get me wrong in this, but for farming, I was employing then people from the nearby informal settlements.
Okay.
And their life versus my life, and their realities versus my realities, and their outlook on life versus mine was completely different. So I joke with friends and say, I've had to, dealing with labor, especially blue collar workers, I'd had to throw away that degreed mentality or the privileged mentality. And privilege is to say, I live in a house that has electricity and running water. As simple as that. Whereas I was employing individuals who are staying in informal settlements who don't have electricity, who don't have access to proper running water. Healthcare is just a difficult one to access. So
right.
That was tough. And I remember I was negotiating with one employee, and she was an elderly woman. I think maybe late, yeah, I suppose early to mid 50s.
Okay.
And yeah, people in the people in the township, especially youth, don't want to come to the farm and work at a farm. So a lot of the workforce I was getting is people almost double, twice my age. And again, so it's those dynamics to say, I'm employing a woman that's just slightly over 50 that is looking after certain children and grandchildren as well, her children and grandchildren. And she's here and she asked me a question of when I was just telling her that, okay, this is the farm rate for this specific activity today. Do you accept it or not? And she said, oh, I feel like that money is little. And I thought, oh, okay, why? And in my mind, I thought, oh, okay, but this is slightly above the minimum wage and a whole lot more than what the other farmers in the areas are paying. And then she said, no, this is a bit too small. And I thought, okay, really, why is that? How much do you want to earn for this specific task? And she was a contract worker. She wasn't really a permanent. And it was just to do a task for about 3 days, her and a number of individuals. And she said, well, you tell me how much a 5 kg of maize, pap, maize is on the shelves. And I was stopped dead in my tracks and I didn't know. I couldn't tell her because I just really didn't know. And I responded to her and I said, I don't know. And she says, well, and then she responded by telling me the price. And she said, so I can't work for that amount on this day, per day wage. And I thought, okay, but long story short, that just woke me up to reality that, again, this is quite difficult and unemployment is quite high and the price of goods has gone up quite a lot. But at the end of the day, how do you as a business person try to manage that, even though you might be paying slightly a bit more than the minimum daily rate from the minimum wage? But it's like, and also you don't want to overpay people. But then again, let's not negate the realities of the world. Food prices are expensive. High unemployment is very high. So what do we do in this stage? And again, also I've had to overcome challenges, especially again on labor, where individuals would then come to their farm, and again, because I'm young, and maybe I'm managing people that are like 45 and upwards, 45 to 55. It's also difficult. And then people also come with their cultures where maybe they can't speak to a woman or a young person can't give them instructions. And it could be a whole range of things. And at the same time, I'm trying to battle this and deal with these small challenges on the farm. And on the other end, to clients, they want me to deliver. You know what I mean? So that was, I think, one of the biggest things that I was battling at that time, and to say, how do I marry the two? How do I get an efficient task force slightly younger as well, and younger being under the age of 50, that is agile? Not to say people that are over 50 are not agile, but farming is manual work, and at that time we're doing a lot of stuff manually. So how do I find a slightly younger workforce in this nearby township that I'm in, so that they could be happy with the rate and the pay that they're getting,
right.
and at the same time competing at the same level or standards of level that these other farmers are producing at.
Right.
And I'm alone. So when I say alone, I didn't have a farm manager or anything like that. So those were I think the major milestones that I've overcome, and something that was very, very, very critical for me to overcome and learn about labor and the blue collar workforce. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions to ask you before we move on. Still on your entrepreneurial journey, I want to understand something. I mean, look, first of all, how did you get your farm or your land? Right, right. How did you acquire the land? Okay, that's question number one. And number two, did you find any challenges being a woman entrepreneur in that particular field? Is it a man dominated industry? And if it is man dominated industry, is it predominantly white dominated or is it black dominated? Do you find a balance? And you, as a woman, black, young South African, what other challenges from a gender based perspective did you incur on your particular journey?
I get this question asked quite a lot. I think let's just put it out there. I think to say the most established farmers, majority of them are white commercial males. And these are farmers that have been producing fifth or fourth of minimum third, fourth, fifth generation farmers. So farming has been in their families or in the bloodline for many years. And so again, and on the other end of it, there are other black farmers, plenty of them, and women as well. But I think not as many that are at the level of the white commercial farmers. I think the challenges, I don't really say challenges, it's certain, I think I just would say encounters that I'd obviously faced, where I would speak to a number of buyers from the clients that I would service. And initially, from the first conversations, it was to say, oh, you're a farmer, and people would just size me up, specifically as a woman, because again, when you think of farmer, you think of a man. You really don't think of a woman. A woman doesn't come, typically, you don't think of a woman right up front. Right. So when I'd say, yes, I'm a farmer, clients would be like, do you produce this yourself? Or is there someone running the farm in the back end? And I said, no, it starts and ends with me. I've got a team, yes, that is, doing the manual labor in terms of planting and harvesting and all that stuff. But I run Green Terrace, and there's no other white man in the background or black man in the background. It's just me. And they found that quite strange, and then you being a man, typically men would just look at a woman in terms of her physique and how she speaks and all that stuff. And I'd had those comments thrown at me in terms of, you're too pretty to be a farmer, or you're too kind to be a farmer, or or you're too educated to be a farmer. Why would a girl that speaks and looks the way you do farm? And I thought, geez, and I can't specifically say how I just, I think, navigated myself out of those conversations, but it was just to say, you know what, John, here's a bunch of spinach. I can bring a ton of this per day. What's your price? Name it. And so people would then just say, okay, let's test her out. And I would see that. And I think I was fortunate to have had a recruitment company before, because I could study people's behavior patterns and what they think, and slightly to some extent how they think, and look at their body language and how they just react. So I could read people very well. So a lot of the clients started giving me business, not because they wanted to, I suppose, but just to test me if I could deliver. And to surprise, I always met or exceeded expectations. And for me, it's about women can do this, sure. Because you wouldn't question a man farmer coming to you and saying, I want to supply you with produce. You wouldn't say, who's running the show, and is it you that's really producing? But for me, and being a woman, it was quite different. But and And in hindsight, long story short, especially from the male element and race element, I've definitely, I suppose, being a woman has also added to my advantage, and being an entrepreneur that is really on the ground, hands-on. I work throughout and I'm dedicated. Then I've definitely received such immense support from farmers in general.
Beautiful.
And this is from all demographics: white, black, young, old. Yeah. So
is it because generally and naturally speaking they want to see farmers succeed, or is it did you find it more as a privilege from your perspective?
No, I think it's just about farmers succeeding. I mean, we all face the same challenges, whether you've been farming for 40 years and me for like 3 years or 4 years now, we all face the same challenges. You know, when there's a hailstorm in the Northwest, then us Joburg farmers would know that, okay, maybe, you know, it might be coming this way. So we all are affected by the same things, which is climate change or fluctuations in prices. Fluctuation in food prices. And yeah, I think the help has really come to say, oh, this is another farmer, you know, we have the same challenges, and let me assist you, or I've gone through this challenge before and I've overcome that problem, and this is how I can impart to my knowledge.
So the question to the land, and by the way, I see so many interesting questions here, so I'm going to ask them. A lot of people are quite inspired by your journey. Honestly speaking, I am myself inspired. And by the way, I love the green color on your. If you guys go on her Instagram, you will not believe that she's a farmer. No, I mean, you can't believe she's a farmer, but the way she actually blends or utilizes social media, I would say your sex appeal and the entrepreneurial journey. No, absolutely. I mean, that pays, especially if you're tapping into your commercial element. Hey, guess what? You got to make use of all these tools, right? And by the way, Srinili, I see you here, and I know you were supposed to call me today, but my day has been crazy. I'm going to take a question pretty soon and to engage. And I have not forgotten about you. I'm going to get back to you. But you know what? You have a question that you haven't answered, is the land. I don't know if the land. How did you acquire the land? And then we're going to talk about mentorship and all that kind of stuff, and take a few questions here.
How I acquired the land is, so after having the conversation with Eric and doing my research on farming, I thought, okay, where do I start? And initially my perception then of farming was like you had to be a multimillionaire to own land, because land is expensive. Yeah. So I knew that firstly my farm had to be in Gauteng, because I've got a husband, and you know, my whole life is in Joburg, and I needed to find a farm that was close for me to commute. So how I found land is I went to an area back home. It's in Spraydrie, so it's in the east of Johannesburg. So I recall just seeing some commercial farms there. So I went to one of the farms, spoke to them and said, okay, do you have a piece of land and I actually asked them, do you have land on your farm, maybe about 2 hectares or so, something small that I could trial and start farming? And the guy said, no, we don't do that. However, maybe go down this road, and in that section, there's a lot of plots that are available there. Maybe speak to those owners. And I really drove there. It was a cold winter's day in June. And I found a farm that was already established. And I just saw some workers there. And then I spoke to them and I said, who's the owner of this land? And they told me that, okay, she's out in a bit. And then they gave me her contact numbers. I called her. Long story short, we met on a farm, and she said, wow, you contacted me at such an opportune time. And I thought, great, okay. She said, I'm a retired teacher, and we've been farming on this land for about 3 years, but it's too big for me. I'm tired, really. And
a black lady or a white lady, was it?
It's a black lady who bought the farm, and just from an investment point of view, her and her husband, and they just tried to develop it. But her kids weren't really interested, although some of them were, I think one, particularly their daughter, was really helping her. But also the daughter had her own desires outside of farming. So she just said, you know what, I'm renting. I'm happy that you want to rent, because I'm actually looking at that. And then I thought, okay, so we'd signed a lease agreement for 2 hectares. And this was in June, and then I farmed on that 2 hectares for about 2 or 3 months. And then she just saw me doing well, I think, in her eyes. And she said, Mbali, you know what, I see you've got a lot of energy, and you're very driven into this thing and very serious about it. And she said, what would you want to pay for leasing the whole farm? And I thought, wow,
Right.
this is a cool opportunity. So in September, I started farming. I planted my first plant in July, and then in September, I inherited I started leasing the whole farm, which is 14 hectares in size, but was 8 hectares in arable land. So
Right.
that's how I started farming.
Okay, that's very interesting, because then I think one of the look, when we look at land, especially for farming,
yeah.
yes, in our subconscious, we always think that for us to own that piece of land, we gotta have like a couple of millions of rands sitting in our bank account. But very few people realize there is a strategy that you can actually apply for you to start farming, even if you don't own a land. That's a beautiful thing right there. In other words, you can become a farmer even if you don't own a piece of land. You can do the round, you can actually do shop around to identify who has a farm, who is not developing the farm, who can I speak to. Maybe like you bumped into a retired, middle-aged lady who wants to actually rent out and so forth. So those are opportunities that entrepreneurs need to be able to think of when they are going out there. So now, here's the thing, right? Contrast: recruitment, farming. You leave this one out, you blend it with farming, and you become highly successful. Did you have a mentor? And if so, can we talk about the importance of mentorship? And we're going to bring in the question from Sinuile as well, so we can actually Swinile, sorry, so we can actually address that. Can you tell me a little bit more about what made you to be successful? I know you went to do your research, you went to identify a few things, but did you have a mentor? What is the one element that got you really off the track as quickly as possible?
Yeah. I can't say I had like a formalized arrangement with the mentor, but the individual that I spoke to, which is Eric, he acted a lot as a mentor. And then again, throughout that time as well in my farming, again, being a first generation farmer, not knowing much about farming, I started immersing myself in all these conferences, events, farming events and farming conferences. I paid for tickets and attended almost everyone that I could think of and everyone that I could find. And then I started paying close attention to the panelists, the speakers, the people in the audience. At break times, I would network with individuals, get a couple of contacts. And that's just how I started. And that's just how I started. I was supposed to know a few people in the industry, and then so they were my go-to individuals when I had a problem. So, for example, I could have met you, and maybe you were, let me even say, non-farm, well, not even a farmer, but you were, let's say, a journalist, and I'd say, John, I'm having a challenge maybe with peppers. Do you know a pepper farmer that could help me with something? And then said, oh, okay, I know, we did a story on XYZ, and here's the contact. And then I spoke to that person, and that's just how I've just developed a network of farmers, and those are my go-to people. And I suppose for the purpose of this conversation, we can say they are mentors, which is fantastic, because I would always go to them should I have any problems, and they would also refer people to me if I was just in any challenge that I was experiencing at the farm. And that for me was a major success towards a major contributor towards my success, I suppose. Just having people that I could fall back on and speak to and get advice from. So till today, I have those individuals. And like I said previously in trying to answer one of your questions, was that these mentors are from diverse backgrounds. They're Black, they're white, they're younger, they're older farmers. Some of them are in Gauteng, some of them are outside Gauteng, but we all face the similar challenges. And it's good to have a network of people to always refer to when you're receiving any problems. And what I've also found is that they also contact me and say, oh, who do you know that does this? So it's just like we're an ecosystem of just farmers helping each other and just going about growing our farms and our businesses, even though we might compete, post farm gate where our produce has to be sold at a number of places or channels, but we're still always just a network that supports and helps each other.
Look, Srinile is commenting there, and she says that
Yeah.
your answer right there proves the theory of your network is your net worth, and I totally agree. And one thing that entrepreneurs need to realize is that, you know what, you need to learn the skill of selling yourself. You
Mm,
need to know what you want. You need to know how to reach out to people. You need to know how to network. You
mm,
cannot be in business and not know how to sell. You cannot
absolutely.
be in business and not know how to market yourself. You cannot be in business and not know where to find for what you're looking for. So I think as a hustling entrepreneur, what we love in this journey is, as we progress, we get stuck. For us to unstuck our brains and ourselves, we need to find
Mm,
a solution. And
mm,
sometimes the solution is, hey, don't you know somebody who can help me do this? And guess
mm.
what? When we get introduced, it's a new connect. It's a new
Can I,
connection to your network.
yeah. Can I come in there as well, John?
Yeah, sure.
I get a lot of requests for people to say, "Can you be my mentor?" And I think even maybe from yourself doing your show and being an entrepreneur, you've received that. And sometimes that just puts you down a bit because it's like, okay, be your mentor, but what have you done? What do you need help with? And that's what I try to do instead of saying no. But again, I think because of limited time and capacity, I can't mentor individuals one-on-one. But what I've seen is that even with people that I regard as my mentors, for the purpose of this conversation, is that I didn't say to them, "Can you mentor me?" I literally walked up or gave them a call and I said, "John, I got your number from Bob.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
planting peppers. I'm in the Highveld region.
yes,
This is what I'm seeing on my crops." He'd be like,
yes,
"Okay, send me a picture." I send him a picture for WhatsApp. I'm like, "What can I do with this thing?"
yes,
And then I said, "Oh, okay, I'll send you my agent's number. Do this, contact." I contact the agent. I follow through. Then that person would, follow up and say, "Okay, did that person assist you?" And that's just how the relationship has gone.
that's
Then,
what it is. Yeah,
yeah. So it wasn't because to say, "John, please be my mentor," but it's just
yeah,
to show, here's something, I'm dedicated, I'm here, I've got a problem. If you've got a solution, help me run through. And then once I've fixed that, I come back to you and say, "Thank you very much for this
yeah.
referral." And, the relationship will just gradually grow from there. Yeah.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and for you entrepreneurs who are actually on this particular show and tuning in, and first of all, carry on sharing this live so that your friends and everybody else around you in your community, in your network, can actually come in and learn from Mbali Nwoko, who is sharing with us her journey as an entrepreneur and how she made it to be successful as a farmer, from being a recruitment agent, running her own recruitment company, to being a successful black woman entrepreneur who actually paved her own way. In fact, you did pave your own way. You wanted
Mm,
it. You went to learn about it. You had Eric to actually ask questions to. I mean, he was handy and he wanted to help you and so forth. And I do think that even when we look for mentors, we need to go to them. And I mentor a lot of people, right? And right now I have a team that actually even managing this particular show. We're putting a platform together so we can mentor people in large numbers as
mm,
opposed to individual, because I don't have time.
yeah,
I travel a lot. Well, thanks to the
mm,
COVID situation, I'm actually at home.
mm,
But it is difficult to be
mm,
able to continuously engage with one-on-one people, right? But
mm,
what you want to do is get to everybody in one single room, give them the tips, okay, necessary, and encourage them to know how to find information.
yeah,
A mentor doesn't necessarily have time. That's what
mm,
I keep telling them. A mentor does not necessarily. A mentor and a business coach is totally different.
mm,
Most likely, a mentor would not even charge you a fee for mentorship. All right, he will give you, hey, what have you got? Yeah, try this and do that. But also, it doesn't mean that the mentor's perspective is necessarily right. No, he's just giving you a certain guidance, right? A
yeah,
business coach will ultimately charge a fee for
mm,
him to be able to take you all the way and also make you accountable. And he will
yeah,
follow up with you and say, you know what, you haven't done that, you have to do so. Go back to the drawing board and so forth. So he's
yeah,
actually following you from the start to the end, right? But there are also other types of master classes, or rather mentorship program, where we introduce the notion of master classes, which is not necessarily free, but we give, for example, to a whole bunch of entrepreneurs a canvas that they need to be able to follow. And say, you know what, if you do this, if you stuck, this is what you can actually learn here, because it's information that entrepreneurs who actually have made it in a specific field have unpacked, they've gone through the journey, just like yourself. You've
Yeah.
gone through the journey. You've learned the hard way. There are so many things today that now you are talking about them through blogs and all that kind of stuff. So your journey is definitely, definitely amazing. So Srinile, I do hope that you've been able to get your answer. But before we move on, I want to take one question from Veronica, and I'll take another question later on. And this is what she says, right? She says she's heard that there are cartels operating in this space. Can you tell a bit more about this experience and whether you were able to find something like this before?
Okay, I think from the cartels, I can't really comment because I'm not sure what she's really referring to. So just don't want to maybe answer incorrectly. But for me to get into the retail space, no, it wasn't difficult. And again, it's not as a point of bragging, but I think it touches on the point of you saying you need to know how to sell yourself. I mean, one of my first retailers was Food Lovers Market.
Okay.
And yeah, and how that happened is that I was at the same event with the CEO when he spoke, and then immediately after he spoke, because he was sitting at a table very close to me, I really walked up to him and I said, Mike, I'm a farmer in this area, and I know there are a couple of Food Lover stores around my area, around the farm. I'd like to supply to you. And he said, oh, okay, great. And then he wrote down his number and his email.
And that was the CEO.
And that was the CEO. He wrote down his
Right.
number, wrote down his email address, and said, email me, and let's see what we can do. And indeed, I emailed him. And in my email, I said, you know, we spoke on this event. However, again, I'm a farmer in this area. And then what I did is that I did a small research in terms of how many exactly Food Lover stores are around and at what kilometers in terms of the distance. And I listed them. And I think at the time there were about 8. And I said, these are the retails, Food Lovers retail stores that are within my vicinity, and all of them are less than 20 kilometers away. I want to supply. I've got capacity to do this, and this is the current. And then, long story short, he got his sustainability manager and the buyer for my region at the farm like a week later, and from there, I started supplying. And then there's another retailer, Pick and Pay, who I think directly to the team that obviously makes a decision in terms of onboarding suppliers. I think I emailed them, like, for example, in January, and I only heard from them in April. And then even when they came and they started that relationship, it was quite quick from there. And they said, okay, we want to see your vicinity. And they said, this is a problem. You don't have X and Y infrastructure. So how are you going to supply through this? And I thought, can we work around it? But what was great is that the buying team loved the crop that I had, and it was of good quality. And they just said, okay, these are the documents we're going to email you to be on our vendor list. And I completed that, and then the rest is history. So for me, getting into the supermarkets, that was my journey, and it was really being taking proactive measures and steps. And even when those teams come onto the farm, you just have to know your story and know and just, I suppose, meet their needs and make assure them that you can deliver on a consistent basis. Although it is quite tough because farming has many elements to it, and they're to understand. But as long as you can deliver and produce a proper crop within their specifications, which is what retail wants, then you would be good to go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Look, your journey is really amazing, and also you've mentioned a few times event, and I think that's what a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs in business, that's what you need to understand. If you are in the let's say the media and advertising industry, make sure that every year you actually attend those events. If you are in the agriculture, because it is in the events that we find, and first of all, we build new relationships, we meet amazing people, we learn from them, and there's no barriers, because you can meet a CEO, you can meet the minister, you can meet whoever at that event, because they are there for one purpose. They are there to connect.
Yes.
And your chances of meeting and building a great network really happens there. So I'm going to move on very quickly, and I want you to tell me a little bit more about the state of agriculture in South Africa and the opportunities for young entrepreneurs at the moment. Do you see any that we can actually start working towards and helping young entrepreneurs like Srinile? I know that she's She has something, supplying something in water, and I still need to talk to her and understand exactly what she does and connect you guys if you haven't been connected already. But can you tell me more about the state of agriculture in South Africa?
I think the agricultural landscape has immense opportunities. From a primary production level, is that we still need a lot more farmers. And not necessarily, well, obviously young, it would be great, male, female, black, white, whatever the case is, or old farmers, whatever the case is, but we need a lot of real active farmers on the ground from a primary level, because there is not enough producers to meet the demand that is within South Africa. And I won't even talk about outside our borders. So from a primary level, there's a lot of, and also a lot of vast untapped land that is not in production. So we need farmers from a primary level. Moving up in terms of the value chain from a processing level, yes. There are catering companies who want to procure directly from farmers but don't have the time and resources to chop, send. They just want to buy coleslaw, cabbage and carrots already diced, peeled, or whatever the case is, and they use those ingredients to make whatever food that they need to make for their clients. And then again, up further into the value chain, there are I don't want to say tech, but I think an element of tech and an element of solution-based problems in terms of, farmers are struggling with maybe automating to make that one irrigation pipe speak to that other irrigation pipe, although there are products like that in the market already. But what about those that will meet the budget of a small-scale farmer?
Right.
Again, opportunity for small financing companies. I might be a farmer that just needs access to 20,000 Rand. I can't really go to the bank. I can't really go to funders or whatever, because it might just be too small. But I need 20,000 Rand to help me with my production, and I can pay off that 20,000 Rand in about 6 months. So small financing houses like that, and that will understand the agricultural space, to know that you give Mbali today 20,000 Rand, she needs to go plant that 20,000 Rand on the 1st of July. However, that 20,000 Rand might only come back to you in November, November, and December, because she has to harvest. So small transactions like that, small financing opportunities for farmers that will help them. And then I could go on from an insurance aspect. A lot of the insurance houses I think if you're a smaller farmer, whether you've got vegetables or livestock, you have to meet a certain quota for insurance houses to really fully take your livestock and your commodities and ensure that it makes business sense for them. So can we see some entrepreneurs coming with great solutions from an insurance perspective for maybe farmers that are, I don't know, maybe producing like 10 million and less per annum, or, whatever the case might be, but just to ensure certain tools, equipment, certain infrastructure that would make it affordable for the farmer as well as for the insurer themselves. Yeah.
You've actually mentioned a few things that are giving me quite a few ideas in terms of the business models and what I do. I mentioned to you earlier on exactly what we do, and it's all about that packaging, putting together investment opportunities, so we can actually get a few folks to come on board and so forth, right? So quite interesting. So there's one question I want to take from Veronica. This is what she says. What's your take on vertical farming, especially hydroponics? I have no idea what that is, but you know what? Can you comment on your views on that? And Veronica is an amazing individual, an amazing entrepreneur. In fact, she has the same drive as you do. And she is from Tanzania, and she's been following me diligently, and she loves this particular show and interaction. So please give her some input in terms of your thoughts on vertical farming.
Okay, Veronica, so I'm definitely a modern farmer, and hydroponics, basically what it is for you, John, and your audience that doesn't know, is farming. It's a method of farming where you use growing medium or soil-less farming. So basically, you're not putting a plant directly on the ground. You're putting on you're growing the plant on a specific growing medium, and using water. And you could use number of strategies like recirculation of water to make sure that you don't keep wasting water. So that's what hydroponic farming is.
Okay.
And what's my take on the vertical farming? I think vertical farming is great. I know you said Veronica's in Tanzania. So for me, I feel like from in the African continent, we've got vast amounts of land. Everybody's flocking into the metropolitan areas, but there's so much land in the rural Eastern Cape, and I'm sure in Veronica in her area she might identify a few, but Eastern Cape, Limpopo, KZN, Mpumalanga, let's just say, peri-urban to rural areas. There's so much land. So for me, we like to get, and especially in South Africa, we like to jump into these nice fancy terms because we see Europeans doing it. Europeans are doing it because there's no space in those areas, especially like even from example from Asia, the cities are overpopulated, etc. So for me, I think vertical farming is definitely innovative, but for me and for farmers, the way I look at it for farmers in the African continent is that is something that it's not even a problem for us as yet, because we still have vast amounts of land that is untapped, that is not even producing. And even on those lands, you can farm hydroponically, using black plastic bags, growing in sawdust, growing in cocoa peat, or growing in potting mix, So there's vast amounts of land. So I think vertical farming for us is, we're very privileged and fortunate in the African continent to still have vast amounts of land, which we really need to take to grab and take up those opportunities.
Would you say that that vertical farming then, look, yes, in Africa we have huge amount of land, right? So would you say that vertical farming will be in places more suitable for where there's no land? I mean, isn't there an opportunity for me to do vertical farming at my house, at my home? Like I could be doing some, these little fancy things that look like little flowers and whatever, but these are in the end stuff that I'm gonna eat and so forth. So
and that's
yeah.
So definitely, if you want to do that, there's like this home systems that you could adopt and employ vertical farming, and you could obviously grow it in your own mini garden. But then again, vertical farming limits it in the sense that most of the vertical farming you can grow leafy crops, so things like spinach, Swiss chard, or baby spinach, or lettuce. Those are the things that you can't grow. You can't really grow like, I see people growing strawberries on them as well. But crops like butternut, potatoes.
Right.
When you look at us in the African continent, especially, let me bring it back to South Africa, a lot of people are living below the breadline. You won't say you want to start a feeding scheme and start feeding vulnerable communities that are starving, and you deliver things like lettuce to them or cucumbers. They don't want that. It's staple foods that they need, like cabbage, butternut, pumpkin, tomatoes, potatoes, things that really will fill the tummy and obviously supplement to the foods that they're eating. So for us, it's about really looking at the opportunities. Vertical farming, that's fantastic. It's new, it's innovative, it's fresh. But who is going to consume the product at the end of the day? And it's what market that you're serving. So if vertical farming makes business sense for you, then go for it. However, for me, it's just like, if you're a farmer that wants to farm, keep it simple. Find a piece of land, farm small, farm a commodity that a lot of people want to buy, and you'll be happy there.
Okay, so let's talk about this now. What should entrepreneurs know about farming before they decide to get started? I mean, I mentioned to you the other day, actually earlier on today, that there's a gentleman who is out of Limpopo. I don't know whether he's actually following us right now. I invited him on this particular show to listen to you and also ask some questions. They get started, they probably have access to land and they want to be able to expand, but then they get stuck, and now they're looking for either employment or capital to supplement. And what do they need to do or to know for them before we get started? And we have a couple more topics, and that will be the closing statement. Please let me know.
Okay. So I think what they need to know is that they must have done significant amount of research, first and foremost. Research on whatever it is that they want to farm. So it could be online, it could be speaking to a number of farmers, And we're living in a day and age where digital technology has taken over. There's lots of articles and resources and publications and thesis that you would find online that is written by a number of things. Or written by very smart individuals on a number of commodities. So I think first do your research. Secondly, you cannot farm without water. Whether you're a vegetable crop or a grain crop or a vegetable farmer or a livestock farmer or a grain farmer, there's no farming that can take place without water. So if you don't have water, find another place. Don't invest amount of money, because don't invest a single cent on that piece of land or property if you don't have water, because there will be times where if you're a livestock farmer, you might experience drought and your animals, your cattle, goats, sheep would need some water. You would need to provide that. From a vegetable farmer's perspective or fruit farmer, fruit commodity, you obviously need to water your plants. And then from a grain perspective, a lot of those farmers, grain farming depends on rain as well. Farm in areas where it has shown consistency in terms of rainfall. So you cannot farm without water. And I think another thing is save as much money as you can, because you won't realize the farming's expensive, John, and you might think you have a plan, but that plan, there will always be things deviating you, I suppose directing you out of your plan or your goals. So you might say, I want to farm a specific commodity and make money I want to farm a specific commodity in January and make money by April. Great. It's fantastic to have that plan, and it can happen. But you need to then plan for the risks that could take place. Maybe the risk during that February or March period, you didn't spray on time, you didn't weed on time. Anything could have happened, or once you start harvesting, the clients delay you in payment. So have enough capital saved up for you, firstly, to carry you as an entrepreneur, and just to carry the business. And it's irrespective of where you get that money, but have enough capital maybe to just sustain you for a few months. So if you think I'm going to make my first sale in 3 months, double that, just to say, expect to say I'm going to get my first sale in 6 months to obviously mitigate against any risks. And then also farming it will change your life. I think, business essentially, but you really have to be hands-on. It's something that you can't leave to your supervisor or your manager to just manage. You really need to be hands-on, because I've seen farmers who complain and say, I'm not making money. And then when I dig deep and I probe in terms of why, you find that they're actually not hands-on. They only visit their farms once or twice a week, and they expect their workers to do everything. Obviously, they won't do anything, and they won't manage the farm the way you want. So it's about being hands-on. It's about being present in your business. Invest a specific amount of time in there up until you've created systems and processes where employees can follow through, and you measure them on that type of performance. Yeah.
Beautiful. So we see here that Swinile, actually, she reached out to one of our posts on LinkedIn, but also on my email. And I think you probably alluded to the water problem.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that she has, I suppose, some solutions to. And Sunile, I'll be very happy to connect you with Mbali if you haven't done so already, so we can actually figure out ways to mitigate the water problems, the challenges encountering, around water. All right. Yeah. And so you've mentioned quite a few things that are quite interesting. And I think I want to move on to our last topic, exactly about farming and funding. How do we unlock capital for young farmers? And of course, there is the aspect of always saving, but we can only save based on what we have, we're producing and so forth. We have a job, and we're planning to be able to save towards going into farming. That's something we can actually do. But how do we unlock capital for us to go into farming? And I know, and I've seen your beautiful article with regard to venture, traditional venture firm and private equity funding as well. So please give us a little bit more of your personal touch on that.
I think if you're an individual who lacks capital and you want to go to private equity firms and venture capitalists, approach those type of firms that have already done significant investments within the agricultural space. So those type of firms that their mandate lies within the farming space, because that makes it better. They are experts in the industry, or they know other experts in the industry. They have a network of the industry. So should they want to invest in you and you encounter a problem as an entrepreneur, they would know how to overcome that problem, because they already know how the industry operates.
Right.
Again, I think from a banking point of view, sure. Having spoken to my agri-bank a couple of times, I think, yeah, banks won't fund you, they'll finance you. So they'd obviously offer products like an overdraft, a short-term loan or production loan. And because agriculture is such a specific niche, you need to bank with a bank, or don't open any general business bank account. You need to speak to an agri specialist and with that agri team, because they understand. So for them, they'll offer you those type of products if your farm is obviously at a startup level, but once it's producing, what they want to see is money coming in and coming out. And then you start making those small inquiries about, I want to loan 10,000 Rand here, 20,000, or whatever amount you're looking for. But then again, and especially with my experience, as much as that has happened, there are a lot of red tape. So the banks would want so many things that will actually, you would then become discouraged in applying, even though you do apply. I think the lending criteria from the bank's perspective has become so much more stringent. So for me, if the way to unlock capital, if you cannot save from yourself, if you cannot save or raise money even on a personal capacity, so you might be working a 9 to 5 and you want to transition to farming, if you could get a loan on your own personal capacity and not from the business capacity, then that would be great, and use those funds and money wisely. But for me, John, really, like I said in the beginning, I started from 50,000 Rand. I made sure that it brought me to a point where I could survive post-harvest. Once I started harvesting and generating sales, I plowed that money back into the business. There were months during in winter where we wouldn't be producing much. So it's about finding strategies in terms of where the business won't suffer too much. So you'd have to lay off certain workers. You make small tweaks like that. And again, I was fortunate enough that my late husband was obviously employed and still alive at that time. So in points where in the farm, back at home, I couldn't meet certain financial obligations or pay certain bills, my husband could carry it. But from a business element, I think it's about looking at what support structures you have. And my mother has been a critical investor, a very key investor in my business. And I remember the first time I asked her for money, I asked her to take out a loan for me for about 90,000 Rand. She did. So because when you apply for banks, again, there's so many tiers and things, hoops and links that you have to jump. Private investors want equity, they want so many other things, so my mother, for me, was like, okay. I remember the first loan she took out 90,000, and the repayment was something ridiculous, like 3,500 a month. I could pay that easily, with my farming operations. But it's to say that these are the opportunities that we want to see from finances. I've since paid her back that 90,000. Last year in May, she took out another loan for me for 100,000 because I was buying a new farm and needed some capital. That's done, and I was able to pay her back that money in December. So if we can unlock those opportunities where I'm like, I'm farm, need, a couple of 100,000 Rand, a few thousand Rands. I'm not asking for millions, but I need this type of amount of money to get me to point X, and then I'll be happy to go from there. So that's just really how I've grown Green Terrace. And again, I'm still trying to find innovative ways where I could save from a business element, find out in terms of if we've got excess capital, where can I invest just to accrue interest from there, so that just to save for rainy days. But, this is just what I'm trying and I'm learning. And but that's the journey for me at Green Terrace. But if people are listening and want to approach these capital firms, banks or other institutions, you really have to have leverage. And I'll tell you a personal story. Having land, or land being owning the land from a bank's perspective is really, it's great, but it's not. Don't think it's an automatic access to getting loans funded. How banks view agricultural land is that your farm might be worth 2 million, but when you use it as a point of security, they take 50% of that value. So then the value would be 1 million. So there's just more things that you need to have detailed and I think long conversations with agri specialists. And then again, just approach funders and VC firms that whose mandate falls within the industry that you're in. Yeah.
Have you ever been successful with any VC firm or private equity firm in South Africa?
No, I haven't approached any private equity firms. For me, it's mostly been banks, and again, I've just been declined over and over again. Even though I owned the land, so last year I bought a new farm. I'm busy developing this new farm. I've left the farm that I was renting, so it was a wake-up call for me, because you're developing a new farm, putting up infrastructure, and you thought, okay, I could leverage this off as security. But I've just been declined on a number of stages. And again, trying to raise capital in my personal capacity has also been difficult from the banks, because unfortunately, as people, you try to run away from debt. And then when you don't have debt, it also can count negatively. So a number of those applications has been unsuccessful, because personally, when they look at Mbali, the individual, I don't have enough debt to get, or the fact that I'm an entrepreneur. A number of them have just said also, our mandate is not to fund entrepreneurs. So those are the challenges that I've gotten. But where I've got to where I am is really going back to my mom and helping me there, and friends in the industry that have extended some money through to me that I've had to pay back. Yeah.
And that's a very interesting story, Mbali, because now it shows us how, traditional banking infrastructure, banking firms would most likely not fund any Black-owned or any startup entrepreneur in South Africa. So it's going to be very difficult, and you have to find different ways and mechanisms for you to be able to raise capital. And I think that the way you've done with your mom, this is more, referring back to friends and families, right? So your family, your mom was able to help you because she sees your drive. She knows you are a hard worker. She wants you to see you succeed. So she's taken you into that particular journey, and eventually you made it through, right? So the last thing that I want to be able to identify from you is what has the impact of COVID-19 brought into your farm? Were you able to sustain this particular pandemic? Did you find opportunities to hire new farmers, or did you lay off these farmers? I mean, during the pandemic or the COVID, people still need to eat. So this is a market whereby you still need to produce. So can you tell me a little bit more about this? And this is our closing remark.
Okay. So personally, for Green Terrace, the impact of COVID-19 has delayed us in a big way, simply because, like I said, I've since left the farm that I was renting and then bought a new farm, which I'm developing. So a lot of the work we started in March. So when COVID came through and lockdown was implemented, it was difficult for a number of suppliers or service or contractors to even resume work on my farm. So that delayed a number of projects, like building a pack house, our greenhouses, etc. And because of that delay, then what essentially that did is that delayed our production cycle. So right now I could have been harvesting some winter crops. However, that's not happening, So the next season, in terms of when I'll be planting, will be the summer season in September. So it was about, how do I find innovative ways to generate revenue between these dry months? Fortunately, that we're in lockdown level 3. A lot of contractors now have obviously done some work on the farm, and we've gone to a point where now we're only starting to see things going. But I think from a farming perspective, and having spoken to a number of friends, South Africa is a very food secure country. The border closures has then forced all the farmers and producers to really keep produce at home. And then what that has done is, obviously it's positive from a consumer point of view, but what that did is that it created an oversupply of fresh fruits and vegetables. And because a lot of mines and hotels and restaurants and schools were closed, a number of farmers who are supplying to those institutions or feeding schemes, they didn't have other outlets to sell their produce. And at that time, during lockdown, it was only the fresh produce markets that were open, and the farmers that are fortunate enough to supply into retail, we had retail contracts, could supply directly to them. So what happened is that the farmers who were supplying to restaurants and all these other areas, they then sent their produce to the fresh produce market, and the fresh produce markets works on a supply and demand system. So if there's an oversupply of produce or food, prices become very low, meaning low income for farmers.
Yeah.
Therefore, I've had friends that have said, okay, it's not worth it for me to start harvesting anymore, because if I need to harvest, I need to package, I need to transport this produce to the fresh produce market. And when I tally up their costs to do all of that versus the price I'm getting, it makes no point. And then for the farmers that were supplying to retailers, a lot of their growing programs, meaning the contracts in terms of supply, was cut down by more than 50%. So these are the challenges that I think a lot of farmers had received in the industry, and trying to navigate around that. And again, what low income really means is that then you have to cut down on stuff, you have to cut down on the things that you pay. And most importantly, from an input perspective, we've seen a rise in prices of input supplies, and these are like chemicals, fertilizers, anything that you want to buy, irrigation, equipment, a lot of the stuff, again, from a farming perspective in South Africa is imported. So, with the rand being very low, especially during COVID, our rand hasn't been strong to the dollar. It then just increased increased a lot of increase in prices in terms of a lot of goods, implements, machinery, etc. And therefore, it just becoming a lot more expensive during this time. And I know personally, for me, I've had to even use the reserve funds that I had to order seeds in advance. So even if I'm going to be planting only in September, I've had to order seeds in advance, because the suppliers had said we can't guarantee if we're going to have seeds in August, because everybody's buying, because we don't know how long the borders will be closed. So these are the challenges that we as the farming community, and myself as a farmer has experienced since COVID-19. Yeah.
And did you tap into any of the so-called COVID relief fund in any of the banks or any of these funders who wants to help entrepreneurs like yourself during the recession?
So for the government one, no, because I don't meet the criteria. It's directly geared towards like the smaller scale farmers, but from the banks, that's the journey I just walked, in terms of I tried to raise money in my personal capacity. I tried to raise money from my agribusiness banker, and the reason were you don't have enough credit, you're self-employed, or we want to fund farmers that are heavily, I suppose there's also needs to be levels at how much you're impacted by COVID. If you're like on scale 9 or 8, it's like you're not important. They want to fund those that are
exactly right. Crazy.
So there's just like, wow, okay. So there's just levels to these things. So as much as I tried to reach out, and it's just been unsuccessful. So again, I've also really resorted to friends and family at this point in time.
Mbali, your story was amazing. I've learned quite a few things. I've noted a few points. You've given me some great insight, especially in terms of what we are doing with our digital financial tools. We really are in a space of finding clever ways to raising capital. All right. So yesterday I was attending the African Entrepreneurs Club, hosted in the UK, and a whole bunch of guys from around the world, African, as we were talking, and to see exactly what can we do as an African people. Do we need to continue talking about this equality thing, the Black Lives Matter story, or do we need to start focusing on ownership? What can we do to start owning our own stories, right? And I do believe that only us as Black people can answer that particular question. So we need to start rewiring our brains. We need to start changing our mentalities, and we need to start focusing on What can we do to see other entrepreneurs succeed, to help other entrepreneurs succeed? So your stories in wanting to see, for example, uh, um, uh, innovative solutions from a financial perspective is definitely in line with one of my mission that I actually set to achieve. And my team and I are pretty excited to have you on board, and hopefully very soon we look forward to being able to structure an investment package that would allow you to grow your farm, giving us equity and obviously giving dividends back to our investors and so forth. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we're all about, because we don't need to just wait for government. We need to be able to work together as entrepreneurs to make this change a reality for the Black African entrepreneur. Thank you very much indeed. Do you have one last word you want to say to female entrepreneurs and any other entrepreneurs out there in the farming space? Just wish them luck and success. Tell one thing that will actually
The best of luck and success, and I think the currency to keep going is your passion, is your resilience. That's how you'll get through the many years of difficult and trying times in farming. And yeah, I think we need more women on board, just to add more diversity. But even from an entrepreneurship perspective, whichever sector and industry that you're in, um, be resilient. I mean, we all face the same challenges, from finance, from logistics, from whatever the case might be. We're all entrepreneurs at the end of the day. So it's about supporting one another, because and just disrupting these markets and institutions that are just really stuck in the way. So I think the way to unlock potentials and opportunities for ourselves as entrepreneurs is to really support each other and come with innovative ways and solutions that could help our businesses across the board. But thank you so much for this show and this interview, and I hope it was of great value to your audience, and
absolutely, it definitely was for me.
not to scare them, because as much as it's high risk, there's also high reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is business at the end of the day, so you really have to be resilient and know your why, in terms of why you're farming, why you're running a business, why you're doing what you do, because in the difficult months, you will then
The why
understand,
is going to lift you up.
yeah, if I was really meant to be in it or not. So yeah, I think all the best to everyone, and they must keep warm.
Absolutely. Bali, thank you very much indeed. I will give you a call sometime this week for our face to face and coffee and catch up and see exactly how we can work together. But to our audience, thank you for being here, Bali. I'll speak to you soon. And guys, this is an amazing show. So once again, the Redefine Your Hustle show is there to inspire you guys. It is there. Alex, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to put your comment here. Alex says that Africa needs this, and thank you very much. Your comments really, wow, today has been amazing. Srinile, Veronica, Donna, Olaseni, everybody here, really, we love the interaction. The only reason why my team and I decided to put on this show, which is going to live for a very long time, is because we want to inspire you guys. We want to help entrepreneurs. We want to create a community of entrepreneurs that can actually if you're seeking for help, you know where to go. Srinile wants to be able to engage with Mbali. She can reach out over here, and we are going to connect her to Mbali. If you guys want to learn for better ways to raising funds, we are going to talk about it and see exactly how other folks have been able to face those challenges, and we are going to make that happen. So I am very excited to be talking to you guys every Monday at 7 p.m. And remember, we have shortened our series of shows, no longer two shows during the week, but one show every Monday, the Redefine Your Hustle show. I bring to you an entrepreneur, female or male, from South Africa, from Asia, Singapore, Dubai, the US, Europe, wherever. An entrepreneur that I've personally met or just recently connected with, so we can actually share those journeys and encourage each other on this particular road, which is really a tough one, right? So, one mention that I want to make today, we are pretty excited, my team and I, to be embarking on the development of an exciting digital platform. This is going to be, and it is, by the way, the first African digital banking and investment platform. So we are going to be doing a lot of PR activities, and as of next month, and stay tuned, because you want to know exactly how our banking platform on a decentralized finance protocols is going to help you to be doing your banking at a lower fees and all that kind of stuff, lending and borrowing, and most importantly, how we are going to bring to you into the palm of your hands the world's best investment opportunities for you to be able to become an investor. For example, Bali's opportunity could be an investment package for you guys, right? And those are the things that we are going to put into our specific platform. And what are we using as an underlying vehicle, an underlying rails? We are using a blockchain technology. And remember, for those of you guys who know me, I'm a tech entrepreneur, and but I blend the best of both worlds, right? Finance and technology, and digital assets and cryptocurrency. So we are a challenger bank, and yes, we are going to be challenging Discovery Bank, which actually kicked off and didn't have a good starting point. We don't care about exactly how big they think they are, but here we are here to challenge the status quo. We are here to challenge the way we are traditionally doing things. We are here to challenge Time Bank. Yes, more details on that pretty soon. And ultimately, we are going to challenge Bank Zero. And I know that Bank Zero is on its way to be launching a few things. None of these guys will be providing to you opportunities that the world has that you want to have access to. And a lot of people have asked me the question, John, where do I invest? Where do I do this? Now, stay tuned because we are bringing this to you. All right. So it is a great news for me. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't sleep every single day. I work all the time for that. Srinili, thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to be sharing as much as I can with regard to our online digital banking and investment platform called Axalio. That name signifies something phenomenal. It is the African Exchange and Liberal Investment Opportunity Digital Bank and Investment Platform. All right. So stay tuned for more. And until then, I'll see you soon. All right.
So, can blockchain be a catalyst for development in Africa? Here is our interview with John Lombela.
It's going to be a pretty unique show where we're talking to digital entrepreneurs and black entrepreneurs that are actually doing great things. Let it be in the marketing space, let it be in cryptocurrency. And I brought back John Lombela, a good friend of mine who's been playing in that space for quite a while. John Lombela, John is the cryptocurrency guru. I call him like that.
I'm an entrepreneur myself, all the way from South Africa. It is important to always develop new things, right? So ambitiously build new cases beyond just financial services. Yes, we believe in the financial services. I mean, Bitcoin, as a matter of fact, was created as a payment system, a peer-to-peer cash electronic system. It all started from there, but it doesn't have to stop there.